Auntie, it's terrible. Your husband is about to board a ship with another woman. You must stop him immediately. Don't let him get on that ship, or something awful will happen.
I received a sudden call from Emily. Curious about what it was, I answered and heard her speak in a panicked tone. I couldn't understand what was going on at first, but after a moment, I remembered Emily's mysterious ability. As soon as the call ended, I immediately messaged my husband, Mark. However, Mark laughed off Emily's words, saying, "Trust a child's play? Come on." He didn't take her seriously. If Mark was going to react that way, I decided to leave it be. But with another woman? What I had heard was that he was going on a business trip. Then why would he need to go with another woman? Questions and doubts began to cloud my mind. Could this be an affair? If that's the case, I can't forgive him. I decided that I had to thoroughly expose what Mark had done, take revenge, and make him regret it. With that in mind, I decided to take action. My name is Linda Smith, a housewife in my 40s. I live with my husband, Mark. Our marriage isn't perfect, but we have a reasonably good life and Mark works a decent job, ending each day as such. That's how I spent my days. Mark, due to his work, is often away from home. Apparently, a new employee had recently joined, and Mark was spending a lot of time training him. As the person responsible for the training, Mark had to juggle his regular duties too, which meant his workdays became longer, and he often wouldn't return home until midnight. Of course, this left no time for us as a couple. If this continued for a long time, it was only natural that our relationship would suffer. One day, I saw Mark relaxing in the living room, apparently having a day off. Thinking it was a good opportunity, I decided to make some time for us as a couple.
Mark, do you have the day off today? Why don't we have some snacks together? I have some delicious treats someone gave me.
I said, intending it to be a small act of kindness. I always appreciated how hard he worked for our family and our life together, so I thought it might be a nice break for him. But the response I got from Mark was unexpected. Huh? What's the point of doing that? I'm tired from working every day, and now I have to spend my day off for you too? Can't I just relax in the living room without being bothered? I didn't mean it like that. I just thought it would be nice for you to relax more, so I called out. If it was unnecessary, I'm sorry. To think I'd rather be working than spending time with you. From now on, even if you see me in the house, don't talk to me. It's nothing but a nuisance. Mark's words made me dizzy. Why did I have to be spoken to so harshly? All I did was try to be considerate of him. Sure, I might have been too meddlesome. But did that deserve such harsh words? If he had just said, "I'm not in the mood today, sorry," I would have backed off quietly. His unreasonable words made me angry. Was it necessary to speak so harshly? I just wanted you to relax a little. Have you thought about how I feel, being treated so dismissively? I appreciate you working hard every day to provide for us, but that doesn't mean you can treat me like this, I retorted, perhaps a bit too strongly. That was the beginning of a nightmare. Huh? Mark responded to my words with a voice filled with anger. Are you serious? Do you realize what you just said? You're challenging me, your husband? I work every day for you, bringing in money, and this is how you treat me? Do you think that attitude is acceptable? His words came at me like a machine gun, and I couldn't respond, falling silent. Mark took that as an opportunity to continue with even harsher words. I thought I had married you in vain. You weren't particularly attractive, not young, and even the housework was sloppy and not well done. Every time I came home, I had to sigh at the dusty rooms. As a housewife, it's pathetic not to be able to do even the basic chores. Don't you feel sorry for me, working like a horse every day for someone who's just a burden? I'm sorry, but... No buts. Just don't defy me anymore. You're a wife, and a failed one at that. If you defy me again, we're getting a divorce. With that, Mark stomped off to his room. I was initially speechless from the pain of his words. I was accused of being sloppy with the housework, but I never intended to be. I had tried my best with the daily chores. But achieving perfection in all household tasks every day is impossible, even for the most experienced housewife. And being told I lacked youth and cuteness was a huge shock. Sure, I'm in my 40s and not young anymore. But I had tried to be attractive in my own way. No matter how hard I tried, my efforts never seemed to reach Mark. That realization was shockingly painful. Maybe Mark no longer loved me. His words, calling me a burden, might truly reflect his thoughts, and his threat of divorce might be sincere. I didn't want a divorce. Because I still couldn't let go of my love for Mark. If possible, I wanted to continue as husband and wife. That was my wish, albeit a faint one. So, from that day on, I tried even harder. To regain some youthfulness and to perfect my housework. My friends said I might be trying too hard, but I thought only this much effort might reach Mark. As I continued to put in the effort daily, I started to feel more fatigued. But I didn't stop. I wanted to be seen as attractive by Mark again, with all my heart. That was my motivation. Then one day, Mark told me he was going on a long business trip. He would be traveling to a distant place, and he planned to take a ferry there. Mark going on business trips was common, so I had become accustomed to preparing for them. As usual, I packed his suitcase and watched him leave for the port. Ideally, I would have liked to see him off at the port, but he had previously said he didn't want that during business trips, so I complied and just wished him well from home. I wondered if Mark had reached the port by now. About 30 minutes before the ferry was scheduled to depart, I finished my chores and decided to take a break. That's when I noticed a barrage of missed calls on my phone. Looking at the call history, it seemed to be from my brother's phone. Wondering what it could be, I called back. Soon, I heard my niece Emily's voice on the other end, sounding very anxious. "What's wrong, Emily?" I asked, feeling a sense of dread. Then Emily said something shocking that would change my fate.
Aunt Linda, it's terrible. Your husband Mark is boarding a boat with another woman. Stop him right now. He shouldn't get on that boat, or something awful will happen.
Emily's voice sounded very urgent. Emily, though only 8 years old, possessed a mysterious power. It was as if she could see the future, accurately predicting events that would happen. Because of past experiences where Emily's predictions came true, both my brother and his wife and I believed in her special ability. This was another of Emily's future predictions. However, I had my doubts about one part. Another woman? Mark was supposed to be on a business trip on a ferry, so there shouldn't be any need for him to be with another woman. Why then was he with another woman? A horrible suspicion crossed my mind. But if this was true, I couldn't stay silent. I had to uncover the truth.
Thank you, Emily. Auntie will be fine,
I said to her and hung up the phone. I decided to take action to discover the truth. If Emily's prediction was correct, something was bound to happen. With that thought, I turned on the news just in case. After leaving it on for a while, a loud alarm sound came from the TV, and breaking news flashed on the screen. The ferry Mark was on had capsized due to an accident. Thankfully, since it was a smaller ferry and the tourist season had passed, there weren't many victims. However, Mark and the other woman Emily mentioned were on board, and there were a few people seriously injured. Soon after the news, I received a call from an unknown number. It was from a major hospital. Apparently, after the accident, Mark was taken to this hospital and was now in critical condition, unconscious. They asked if I knew anything about the woman he was with. But I didn't know anything about her, so I honestly said no. If he regains consciousness, may I come to visit? Could you please keep me updated? I asked. They agreed, so I decided to use this time to investigate Mark's actions without visiting the hospital yet. I hadn't yet confirmed whether Mark was indeed cheating. That wouldn't do. I needed solid evidence. A few days later, Mark's belongings were returned. Most of them were water damaged and ruined. Of course, Mark's phone was broken too. However, when I took it to a phone repair shop, they said they could fix it and recover the data. I immediately asked them to repair it. Everything Mark had done must be on that phone. I would probably find out about the woman he boarded the ferry with. Feeling confident, I waited for the phone to be fixed. A few days later, the shop called to say the repair was complete, and I went to pick up Mark's phone. Carelessly, Mark hadn't set a password, so anyone could access the contents of his phone. As soon as I got home, I turned on Mark's phone and checked the history. There, I found frequent exchanges with a woman named Jessica in the messaging app. Jessica seemed to work at a night spot that Mark visited on business. Initially, their conversations were typical, like thanking him for visiting the club. It seemed Mark took quite a liking to Jessica, as he began visiting her club more frequently. Their conversations gradually became more intimate, and they started meeting outside the club as well. The chat history was filled with explicit expressions of affection, like saying I love you. Further examination revealed that Mark's frequent absences from home, supposedly due to work, were actually to spend time with Jessica. When he claimed to be on business trips, he was actually traveling with her. And those late nights he said were due to overtime? He spent them at Jessica's club or alone with her. It seemed that Mark and Jessica's relationship had indeed deepened over time. So, all this time, the overtime and business trips were lies. Even the excuse about training new employees was fabricated. All of it, just to create opportunities to be with Jessica. Lies spun to deceive me. I was furious when I uncovered the truth from Mark's phone. Immediately, I called his parents. I need to see you right away, I told them, and they made time for me. I went to see them with Mark's phone in hand. When I showed them the contents of Mark's phone, they were stunned, unable to believe it at first. But the chat history didn't lie. As I showed them the entire history of Mark and Jessica's exchanges, his parents sighed deeply and then apologized to me.
Our son has done something unforgivable. We can't apologize enough. If you want a divorce, we understand. Take as much alimony as you want. We're truly sorry. Linda, you've been working hard for us every day, and this is how he repays you. We'll make sure he regrets his actions. Please, rest assured.
I received strong support from Mark's parents. But this was my battle. I couldn't leave everything to them. I made a request to his parents to let me be the one to confront Mark about this situation and asked them to observe the situation quietly until then. When I told my story, my father-in-law frowned and said, "But we can't just leave everything to Linda," to which I replied, "I'm really angry about being betrayed like this. Even if you do something about it, it won't calm my anger. I need to punish him myself to be satisfied. So, I would appreciate your cooperation." Understanding my feelings, he said, "Okay, if that's the case, we'll help. Linda, regardless of him being our son, we want you to completely ruin that fool. Even if you go too far, we'll take the responsibility. Go ahead and carry out your revenge as you wish. My son did something absolutely unforgivable. Especially to you, Linda, who has been betrayed by him for so long. You mustn't just cry and suffer in silence. You have to fight back. We support you, so go ahead and do your best," his wife added with encouraging words. Having Mark's parents on my side was very comforting. Even if they had opposed me, I was determined to carry out my revenge thoroughly. In the not-so-distant future, Mark would face hell. Betraying me and going after another woman meant just that. Imagining Mark's face filled with despair made my heart race, and I eagerly awaited the day he would wake up. Once he did, he would regret ever regaining consciousness, facing a terrible situation. Thinking about such a future made me so excited I couldn't sleep at night, almost like a child before a field trip. Regarding the compensation for the accident, since Mark was unconscious and couldn't receive it immediately, I decided to leave it with his parents. We also agreed to leave the decision of what to do with it to them. I was sure they would make a good judgment. Soon after, I received a call from the hospital. Mark had regained consciousness. I immediately went to the hospital with his phone. When I was led to his room, Mark was awake. "How are you feeling?" I asked him. Noticing me, Mark, with a cheerful smile, said, "Terrible. I've missed work and I feel awful. But at least I'll get compensation." "Of course, you won't get a penny, right?" He seemed quite well. "By the way, you were on the ferry with a woman, weren't you?" I asked with a smile. But Mark remained silent, not responding. "Weren't you supposed to be traveling alone? Yet, you reserved with a woman. What's your relationship with her? How is she?" "She's fine. I heard she was discharged a few days ago." "That's good," Mark said, looking genuinely relieved. So, Jessica meant that much to him. But his reaction only irritated me more. Even at such a time, he was concerned about his affair partner. If he had that much mental leeway, he could surely recover from being brought to hell. So, anything I do will be okay. Even if I go too far, it will be okay. "Well, I actually know all about your affair. You were cheating, weren't you, Mark? Your phone was returned to me right after the accident, and it had all the data, including the history of your conversations with her. You were head over heels for her, weren't you?" "That is." "I don't need any excuses, there's plenty of evidence. Besides, I can't trust any excuse you give now.
Just admit it and apologize, and I might forgive you somewhat.
What will you do? I had this naive thought that if he apologized now, maybe I wouldn't be too harsh and we could perhaps continue as a couple. After all, I still had a little bit of love left for Mark. No matter how cold our relationship had become over the years, my love for Mark had never completely faded. I genuinely cared about him. So, there was a part of me that wanted to give it another shot. If he apologized and showed remorse, I couldn't deny that I was somewhat lenient. However, Mark betrayed my words. He said,
"I don't need forgiveness from someone like you. You can't live without me, can you? So, why do I need to apologize at all? Do you think it's okay to defy your husband? Shouldn't you be the one apologizing?"
"Oh, I see. That's what you think," I replied. Mark's words made it clear to me that it was hopeless. No matter how much I compromised, it was over. His feelings were not with me anymore. Then, I must make him fully understand the gravity of his betrayal. He needs to realize just how significant his actions were.
"Then let's get a divorce. I've already got a lawyer ready, so let's proceed."
When I said that, Mark tilted his head and exclaimed,
"What? Divorce? Are you serious? If you do that, you'll..."
He was probably surprised to hear the word divorce from me. But I had been considering divorce for a while and had no intention of retracting my words.
"Yes, I'm serious. Let's get divorced and have no further dealings with each other. I've found a good lawyer. I'm going home for today, so prepare yourself mentally. I'll be seeking alimony for your affair." "Alimony? I didn't expect that. I can't stand the thought of giving you money. And I can't afford it."
"Well, that's too bad.
You're the one who cheated, so you should take responsibility for it."
Shocked by the mention of alimony, Mark's attitude changed. And he desperately pleaded, "Please, don't ask for alimony. If you do that, I'll be ruined." I was taken aback by his sudden change in behavior, but my irritation grew due to his clingy attitude.
"You did this to yourself, so you need to take responsibility. No matter what you say now, I won't change my mind."
I left the hospital room, ignoring his cries of "wait for me." Afterward, I proceeded with the divorce proceedings. Mark was reluctant to divorce, so I had to involve a lawyer for the negotiations. With undeniable evidence against him, Mark couldn't escape the situation, and the divorce was granted, along with the alimony. Mark later sought help from his parents, but they were furious with his actions. They kept the compensation money and ordered Mark to pay the alimony with his earnings. This forced Mark to work hard as he couldn't afford to spend time with Jessica anymore. Eventually, Jessica lost interest in him, and their relationship ended. The shock of losing Jessica was immense, and Mark ended up quitting his job. He's now living as a part-timer. I met my former father-in-law recently, and he seemed quite down, which was almost amusing to see. As for me, I'm leading a happy life. I received the alimony and used it to move and prepare for a new life. I found a good job and am now working as an office assistant. The whole ordeal with Mark was stressful and difficult. But without Emily's advice, I might have never realized his betrayal. I'm truly grateful to her. There might be challenges ahead, but I'm determined to face them with strength and perseverance.